This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And a good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mondays with the Mayor. We are broadcasting the show live tonight from the Diamond Head Resort on Estero Boulevard on Fort Myers Beach following the Let's Go FMB meeting. And it's episode number 27 of Mondays with the Mayor. And before we get to Dan and start with the questioning, want to let you know that the show is sponsored in part tonight by the Landau Law Group. And you can call the Landau Law Group at 866-703-4878, 866-703-4878. If you're having issues with your insurance claim, if it was denied, delayed, or underpaid, if you're getting the runaround from your insurance company, don't get frustrated. Call the attorneys at the Landau Law Group, 866-703-4878. And I'm not sure if you can really see it with the glare on the windows, but this could be the nicest place we've ever had this show before with the beach, the beautiful beach in the background, Fort Myers Beach. So welcome back to the show, Dan. I know it's been 2 weeks because you've been busy, and we appreciate you coming down.
Been in person.
We're going to have to just...
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go. Is
Yeah.
that better?
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh, yeah. Perfect now.
All right.
So...
I've never been accused of talking too soft. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
So, what is there anything that you wanted to start with as far as updates before we talked about the meeting tonight or anything like that?
Yeah, I think most of the stuff has been covered. I think with the the money for the baseball field is a big thing from 7-Eleven. I haven't had a chance to talk with Andy about if they got their application in for the southernmost 7-Eleven, if you will. They talked about coming in on the 16th and doing that, so I haven't had a chance. I caught him at the end of the meeting there as I was coming in, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I'll follow up on that tomorrow.
And that's $25,000 that 7-Eleven donated to help refurbish the Little League field at Bay Oaks.
Yeah, it's on the agenda for tomorrow to accept that gift, so that's a great thing. Obviously, the amber lights, everybody has seen those they've been installed now. All of them.
Okay.
I did get an email from Cindy Johnson that there were a couple that were not corrected. I forwarded that off to Charlotte at FPL. I have not heard back from her, but she did forward it on to their crew to get those resolved. And there was another one that was missing a fixture altogether. So hopefully they'll get those fixed, or they did get them fixed. I haven't followed up with her yet today to see if that got done.
Is there more continuous light now? Because that was like, how there was the light dark because they weren't all up and running.
Well, it was that. And then the issue was when they put the crews put it up, they put the full 4-sided shielding on it. So it was cutting off half of what it was supposed to illuminate. So they went back and took off the one side on Estero Boulevard that obviously was landward side. They took those off. And then the ones on North Estero Boulevard, they took off the ones that were seaward side. So that, landward side, they took them off so that it wasn't shining onto the beach. So that's been done. The DEMS DEMES porthole is now officially open to put in for your appropriation request for that $350 million that Adam Botana talked about. So I know Tidal Basin and staff have been working hard at getting things put in for that. So now it's just a matter of the window for that is, I think it's July 31st. It closes to get your stuff in. They may extend it, they said. I went through they had 4 seminars where you could go through, and Director Guthrie and his staff kind of went through what the steps were, how you work the porthole, what to expect. It's not a first come, first serve thing. It's you get it in, they review it, and then they start issuing out the money. Some of it's grants, some of it's loans. So that process has started. That started on the 15th.
And that's to get your needs in, to get the needs.
Yeah, so everything like Estero Bay Light, Estero Lighting, Town Hall, all the things that we've been talking about for months and months.
Is there a specific a lineup that you kind of number 1, number 2, number 3 priorities?
Yeah, there was a priority list that was put in. It obviously shifted a little bit here and there, so I don't know exactly what got put in first as priority 1, priority 2, and depending on what the project is, it goes to 3 different categories of reviewers at the state that review it. So depending on if it's a what they call a PW project, which is basically a thing, something that was destroyed that you're going through FEMA to get mitigation money on. Because the big thing with the appropriation money is that they don't want a duplication of benefits. Obviously, we've heard about that 1,000 times. They don't want to pay. The state doesn't want to pay for something that FEMA is going to pick up, or you're going to get through your insurance company, or anything like that. So it takes a little bit of a review to see, and that's where Tidal Basin comes in. That's Sanibel has Tidal Basin. They have a different company for the
Remind
county.
people who Tidal Basin is, because it's been a little bit since we heard their name.
Yeah, so Tidal Basin is essentially the company that comes in and helps us through all the paperwork and all of the FEMA stuff that we have to go through, the mitigation projects, the grant writing, all of that kind of stuff they help us out with. Prioritizing, so we get a weekly report of all the prioritized things, where it's at in the process, what's been funded, what's not been funded. They were very helpful in what you'll see tomorrow. We're going to get that $10 million stormwater grant. We'll be accepting that. The Tidal Basin went out and got that for us. So their job is to do the stuff that our staff, no staff could. That's why every community that was involved has their disaster recovery team, essentially, is what they do, is they come in and help get through all the red tape.
One of the things on the agenda is the ad valorem taxes, and there's a proposal for a 13% tax increase in the agenda packet.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been some activity since the agenda came out. Can you give us an update on what we might see tomorrow?
Yeah, so Joe came in and he's doing a great job. He essentially had to unwind some things and figure out what money was where and how it was being allocated, and he's doing a great job at getting through that. Some of the increases that you posted about and has gone out there about the 13% was due to increased costs for healthcare, as well as our insurance premiums went up 600 and some thousand, which Joe will be presenting tomorrow, and you'll hear this all over again. But essentially there was a major increase in insurances is why there's that deficit. We do have the 11. I know there's been some talk out there that, why are we raising taxes? I thought we got money. Well, we did go get that $11.9 million bridge loan. That's there to offset some of that operating cost. These are just expenditures that weren't calculated because you couldn't calculate for a storm for your increases in your premiums to go up that high. However, there are other things that are in there that you'll hear tomorrow that the council can vote on to offset some of that or take some of that away completely. So depending on which one of those, and they're still working on some of the things that were budgeted for last year that were put into the general fund that could be used to offset that, to potentially not have to raise the millage rate. So we'll have those discussions tomorrow. We don't have to necessarily, again, every year we go through this and people forget when you start talking about millage rate increases, what it is tomorrow. It's going to be discussion. You can't go backwards.
Right.
Once you submit to the state what your potential millage rate could be, you can't change it. You can't go over that. You can go down, but you can't go up. So like we did almost every year, I think
Go a little higher.
You go a little higher, and then when it comes back, you can't go over that, but you can always go back down to where you were, or you could do rollback. So there's things that you can do. It's just the initial thing to let the state know, here's what we think we're going to need, worst case scenario, and we can always go backwards.
So what is your gut feeling? Do you think there's going to be a tax increase?
I don't know. I mean, until I hear from Joe specifically. So
Joe's the CFO for people that don't
sorry.
know.
So he until we hear from Joe tomorrow to understand exactly where we're at as far as why this percentage increase would need to happen. And I see there's some confusion out there too as I follow some of the social media and some of the emails I get. It's not a 13% increase on your entire your trim notice. It's on the percentage, which is about 6% on the island. That actually goes to the town of Fort Myers Beach. So I think I saw, I think Holly put a post, which was a very good post on a $2 million house. Roughly, it's $91 a year. Should it go up to that 1.12 that's being proposed? So some people were really concerned that I'm paying $10,000 in insurance. Now I got to pay 13% on top of that. And that's not the case. That's not how it works. So now that doesn't mean the other taxing districts like Lee County, they don't, right? Yeah, the fire district. Library. That doesn't mean that they're not. They could potentially raise theirs, and that it all gets compounded.
It would all add up.
What we're specifically talking about is just for the town of Fort Myers Beach, is about roughly 6% of your actual your trim notice.
Right, and part of the reason why the taxes on Fort Myers Beach are so low is because when they originally incorporated, the goal was government light, and so that's why the taxes are low. But I mean, you did suffer a major hurricane.
Well,
that wasn't factored into government light.
Yeah, this is always difficult, and it's even more difficult now that we've had to deal with the storm because, we all want to get back to where we were on the 27th, and we want to get there as fast as we can. But sometimes that takes money and that takes time. And it's a horrible thing to have to say that, but it's true. It takes money. You can't always have your cake and eat it too. You have to, if you want more, sometimes you got to pay a little bit more.
You got to pay for your cake.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, or you could have the cake without the frosting, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird, but I think we're in a better position now than we were before the storm because we actually have a very, very smart CFO that's in place.
For sure.
That it's, what money's going where, how it's getting spent, what needs to happen. So he's making that transition, although it's difficult because he just came in, but he's working through it with his staff very quickly to get us what we need to get get into our budget cycle.
So a couple of the other quick things. Is there any update yet on Town Hall? It's been 2 weeks since I asked that question, and hopefully,
yeah, there's another update.
Okay, go. It doesn't sound like it's going to be a good one.
No. So So now it's in. I think the acronym is the ECP, or Environmental Review part of the FEMA process now. So we keep being told that, I'm pushing very hard because it's we're getting to that point now where people that have worked very hard to get their properties cleaned up and are starting to rebuild, their neighbors maybe are deciding they're not going to do anything, or they're stuck with insurance. And it is hard to tell someone, hey, you got to clean up your backyard when our backyard's still a hot mess.
Right.
So I'm trying to let them know that, it's not that I want to push this hard. It's we need to have some, we keep getting the carrot dangled in front of our face. Yeah, you can go ahead, only to find out you got to wait 2 weeks. And then, we got another review, and it's maddening. Let's put it that way.
I can't understand why there's so many different departments that has to go through. I mean, it's now become a symbol. Like it would be a symbol of moving forward if that building would come down, not even to mention the fact that you have no idea when you can start building on that property or how long it will take or how much you're going to spend. It's just still a dangle of wires almost 9 months later.
Well, so I think people, if I could say anything, trust me when I say as a town, just speaking for myself, we are just as frustrated in some of the processes. We completely understand. We're going through it. We're going through the same issue. We can't start our rebuild until we get rid of what's there. So hopefully we'll get that next week. Again, I'll find out tomorrow morning if I can get an update on it. But
yeah,
unfortunately, it's not going anywhere yet.
And the other one I'm afraid to ask about is Bayside Park, because I know it's kind of in the same. It's kind of in the same group. It's in the same group.
That's another one of the things that we put in for the appropriation money to see if we can get that covered. Even if it's a loan to be able to cover the rebuild part of it, and then you have to obviously pay the state back. I haven't talked to Jason. I was gone a couple of days this week, although I was replying to emails. I was not talking to staff as much as I normally would. So, and Andy just got back from his trip, so we're working hard to get back on where we're at with the projects.
And just to clear up any confusion, if there is any, I don't know that people wouldn't know this, but the pier, which came up a lot tonight, it comes up a lot all the time. It's owned by Lee County. Lynn Hall Park is owned by Lee County, and the pier is owned by Lee County. And Kevin Ruane, who's a county commissioner, came on our show a couple of weeks ago, and he said it's going to be 2 to 3 years. And he was totally honest about it. He said there's all these reviews, not just FEMA, but then you got the Army Corps of Engineers, and you have the DEP because it involves the water. And he just said that's just as,
it's the Army Corps of Engineers.
Isn't that what I said?
No, you said DEP.
Okay.
Well, probably both.
Yeah.
Probably
and the
both.
Army Corps.
Because you're putting pilings.
But the Army Corps because you're in the water. Right?
Yeah. And so that's, and there's nothing the town can do about that. It's not a town-owned facility.
No, but we've had a couple of meetings with them about visioning. Do you want it to look the same? Do you not want to? No, there's been no design. There's been no talk about anything other than, do we want to put it back exactly the way it was? Or is this a potential opportunity to be able to enhance Times Square, to work with the county and work with the business to be able to create something that is really, really unique and really, really cool for that area? And so far, everybody's been on board and doing it. It's just a matter of getting there. And I know the county's dealing with the same thing with Lynn Hall Park. Obviously, they can't touch it until they get the sign off to start doing what they need to do there. But we've got a really unique opportunity to take what the county has and what the town has and what the business owners have in that little section of our island and make it a unique experience.
But is there a group that needs to get together and focus specifically on Times Square and the pier and Lynn Hall Park, or is that just going to be something that the county takes the lead on and it's part of the resiliency thing and there's 50 committees they got going there? Or, who's taking the lead on like you mentioned, the design. Where does that start?
Well, like anything else, everybody starts out with what works for them, right? Like, what does the town need, or what does the town want? What does the county need or want, and what do the business owners want? And until we have those three entities together to say this is what we think, and this is what we think, and this is what we think, it's really hard to start that process. You can have committees as much as you want,
Yeah.
but until the three decision makers are actually sitting in the same table and saying, "Here's what our vision is. Here's what your vision is."
Right, but who starts that? I mean, who gets everybody around the table?
Well, it can be started by anyone for the
Yeah.
most part, but
Gotcha.
I'm certainly willing to sit down and have those discussions, because you're going to have to bring in some sort of someone that's going to have to
Consultant.
represent.
Yeah.
You know, then you go
All
through
of
RFP process to talk about what you can do there, what you can't do there. Everybody has different. You know, what can you do now with the coastal construction line there? All those things have to come into
Right.
play. What's your height? What can you build there?
With
Those
the
are-
coastal construction line, I wonder if you're even allowed to have that bait shop out there anymore. Are you?
Good question. I don't know.
So
That's a good question. That's the questions that.
I don't think the group, though. I mean, what I picked up from the group wasn't that they were confused
no,
about.
I don't.
though.
I don't mean. I mean,
That
sometimes.
they were looking at working not only with the town but also with the county. on
Yeah, I
those-
think
on
that
those
every
things.
business owner that I've spoken with in the Times Square area understands that, you know, they're not working with just the town, they're working with the county as well. And the more we all work together, we'll get there that much quicker.
Do we know where you need to build in Times Square? Do we know exactly where that needs to start yet? Has that been determined? Like you need to start 18 feet up, or if you want to put it, I mean, do we have what the specs are for the new buildings? Do we know?
The FEMA flood map is out.
Okay.
And I think it's 19 feet in that area. Don't quote me on it, but it's because it's in a V zone.
Yeah.
It's pretty high as to where you have to start. So, and I heard it mentioned on I wasn't here, but I was listening on the drive over. I heard someone talking. I think it was Paula was
Okay.
talking about the NFIP program and could we just tell them, yeah, we don't want to be involved like Key West does? But I think Patrick came up after and made a very good point that then anyone that has a mortgage or anyone that would have to have a mortgage on the island couldn't live on the island or buy on the island, because you can't get insurance if you can't get a mortgage if you don't have insurance.
I see.
So
So how are they getting
I-
away with it?
but
in
I
the
also
US?
understand that. But I also, because people are just buying and not having insurance or
And
self-insurance.
is it countywide? Is it countywide? It's that you guys can't.
No, it would be, you know,
So you, as a town, could opt out of it,
sure.
and then
Sure.
the county, and then
But it'd be interesting to find out. And I heard them talking about committees. I think that would be one of the things. I think one of those committees, if it were me, I would have focus on is how many people on the island actually would have to have insurance because they have a mortgage. You know, I heard Paula talk
well, they
about the
did
numbers
have
and the 15%.
they did have a raise of hand. Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people that are building back don't have that kind of fluid capital,
Capital.
to just sit there and
the
build
only
back.
way you can get away with it is if you buy for cash, because then you don't need a mortgage. Then you don't have to worry
Then
about
you're
the insurance.
self-insuring.
Well, I
Gotcha.
think some people were saying there are other options. I just
you
want to
still
ask
you still can get insurance, obviously, if you pay cash for it, but
Right.
doesn't mean you have to, because you're only getting $250,000.
What's the
Right.
purpose of getting insurance? They're not paying out. I mean, why waste your money on it?
Well,
Nothing seems to be working with the insurance.
I've
so
heard
why
peop-
even
I've
can
heard
worry
people-
about
well,
the
I've heard people say
15%?
that they've had, you know, good
That's true.
things
There
with their
are some.
insurance companies that have been very pleased. So, you know, it's like anything else. There's
Not
there's a
everybody.
good side and bad side.
So
to that.
go
no,
ahead.
Let me
Go
just
ahead.
ask. To that point, do you know how much? Because I was reading that if you opt out, and this was on the government website for the National Flood Insurance Program, is that if you opt out, your some of the hazard mitigation grant program goes off the table. How much money? How much is that coming into Fort Myers Beach? Is there a number? I mean,
Well, it's still working through that one. You know, there's 1.1 billion out there through the county too. So nobody knows that specific number, but just that money that I'm guessing that mitigation money to raise your house at $75,000, that would not be an option. So it's more complex than just saying we need to get out of the National Flood Insurance Program.
Well, I think that was my point. That there are other things you lose just in addition
Sure,
to
Sure.
the
There's a lot of
mortgage stuff.
There's
Yes,
a lot of
yes.
there's a lot of things that could happen in the background that, you know,
and so
could really
yeah.
affect a lot of people that live here now, but maybe couldn't live here if they couldn't have a mortgage.
Yeah. So the meeting tonight, they had about 125-ish, maybe a few more people. There was 150 to 160 watching, And the general theme was the rebuild isn't happening fast enough. That's what I got out of it. Do you agree?
Well, I think it's important to remember 9 months ago, we had a pretty catastrophic storm hit our island, and it really thrust a lot of people into an arena that they never thought they would have to be in. I would be willing to bet there's a great percentage of people on this island that have never had to deal with permitting. They've never had to deal with a contractor to this scale or this magnitude to rely on their word to be able to do some things. So there's a lot of things that are going on, but I always think about it when people say that things aren't going fast enough. Director Guthrie, who I would argue is probably the top person in the state when it comes to disaster recovery, obviously that's his title, always said it in every single meeting that I had with him. Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. And it took a little bit for it to sink in. And when you think about it, you say it again, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I heard someone talking about it's not a marathon, it's a sprint. Well, eventually if you're sprinting, you run out of gas, right? Or in a marathon, you can run a little bit longer. And I think that's what Kevin is trying to relate when he says that is we all want to get to things as fast as we possibly can, but you have to go through the right steps to get there. And it's more important to have the steps correct than it is the speed in which you get there. Because if your process is correct, or you can get your processes moving in the best way possible, you're going to inherently get to the end goal faster.
So when you go ahead.
I think there was a lot of talk about timelines, having timelines out there that people are aware of. How easy, how difficult is that to do in this situation?
Well, I think I don't think it can be one specific timeline, because where you may be in your insurance company arguments may be different than where I'm at. You may have a permit already issue, I may not. So when you say a timeline, it's hard to put it. I've been in construction my entire life. Putting a timeline on something is very difficult. Everyone does it because you have to have a timeline when you're doing a construction project. But very rarely do those timelines ever stay on course. And, so a timeline is a goal. It's something that you strive to achieve. But again, when you have 5,000 residents that are dealing in they're not going at the same pace, or some are financially in better shape than others, and they can do what they want quickly and not have to wait for insurance money. It's tough. So I'd like to hear more about the timeline, what they mean by timeline. Does that, it takes a year to build anything. If you're building anything of any kind of scale, by the time you go through your design process, just look at Bay Oaks. Remember when we were going through the design process, just to get to the point where we had permits that were or plans that are ready to be permitted was a year. So, you're talking a year. And I heard, I think it was Scott say that, having to deal with the DEP because he's on that side of the coastal construction line. So when you have to deal with things like that, so Scott's going to have a longer timeline than someone that's across the street like Rude Shrimp.
And I think they were, I don't know, what's listed is as an example is like the school. So I think it was maybe not personal residential timelines, but services, those institutional infrastructure type things.
You have to speak into the microphone, ma'am.
Sorry,
nice and close. You know the rules.
Infrastructure type.
So Dan,
thing.
when you see, when you see all the people in there, a lot of them are your friends, a lot of them you've known a long time, and you hear what they're saying and you see what they're going through. How does it not feel like? You're behind the scenes. You're in the town hall trailer, and you're dealing with the permitting people. You're dealing with the new town manager. How do you not see that as almost like a failure of government?
Well,
I didn't ask you, dear. You're not involved in the government.
We all know that we wish permitting could be faster, and we've given direction to the staff to hire more people, and they're going through the process they have to go to get the people hired.
Mm-hmm.
My goal, and I've been not shy about it, is I want everything brought in-house. I think everything should be, if I come in to talk to you about something, I shouldn't have to wait to get a response from someone from Miami on my flood review,
right,
or any review. So for me, that's very important. I can tell you over the last 6 months, Chris and Keith and now Andy are hearing it from me almost every single day. This is something that is priority. But I assure you, we're not the only ones that are having problems. Sanibel's having issues. Everyone's having issues with permitting because, again, as I said earlier, everyone on the island got thrust into an arena that they've never been in before.
Right.
They don't understand.
But
I did one of the things that they said in there. I wish I could remember her name, but she brought it up. And I was talking to the fire chief after the meeting on my way down in here. very few people can build a house by themselves.
Mhm.
Not very many people can do it. And those that can do it understand the process. But I think she was talking about the notice of commencement. She's gotten very good at that. And I liked her idea of
Helping.
I'll help you do that.
Right.
Now, maybe you have someone that is, I heard another thing about doors and windows. This is what I know, because a lot of people don't understand that. And I've seen comments of, why did it for doors and windows? Well, in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Chicago, what you need to get approved to have a window installed is much different than it is down here on the barrier island.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are submitting their permits for windows or doors, let's say, because that's what I'm talking about, and not understanding that they have to include the documentation of what the wind rating is on that window.
Yeah.
Something that's similar. So that goes back again to, now that they're relying on their contractors to have to do that. But what I've seen a lot of is that contractors are getting they're not submitting the information, and then they're getting a rejection letter, and a month goes by and the homeowner isn't aware.
Right.
because-
They're just leaving them hanging.
so,
and we've
so-
talked about that
Yeah.
before
And
about
people have
homeowners
sent me-
checking.
I get-
They need to check online.
Yeah, I don't know how many emails I get a week, and people sending me their permit number to help look it up for them, because they don't understand what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And I can say this, you got a rejection letter to this email on this day. And most of them are like, I never knew anything about a rejection letter, and this is what it was rejected for.
I
That's
think
our job, is to
I
help.
think if what comes out of that meeting tonight was that you have somebody that's going to help other people on the island streamline the permitting and the doors and windows and the fence, and if there's an expert in each area, then I think
Mhm.
that'll be something really productive,
we need
because
to
they're
ex-
helping each other.
And we
there.
need to expand how some of the permits before the storm, or when I first started looking at it after the storm. I've never looked to see what it took to do a demo permit, because I've never in a million years thought you're going to have to demo something, right?
Right.
Well, one thing I noticed, and I've talked about it on your show before, is there were 3 links that you had to go to be able to get that demo permit. Why aren't those 3 pieces of paper on one click?
Right.
It says demo permit, I click this, and there's the PDF that's combined. We need to take a hard look at, are all of the permits that are required, not all, but at least all the commons we're seeing now. Obviously, some are going to change and it's going to go through,
Right.
but it needs to be a one-stop click. You click on one thing. If it's a window permit, you click on this. If it's a remodel permit, you click on this, and everything that you need in there, because you don't want to go back out for the NOC. You don't want to go back out for the owner acknowledgement. You don't want to go back out for all the other things that you need within the permit process. And that's why I think we were having so many delays before the storm, is because people didn't know, like for instance, a demo permit, there was 3 pieces of paper that they needed. So they filled out the demo permit, they sent it in, they got a rejector saying you need your notice of commencement. So they fill out the notice of commencement, get it notarized, send it in.
Instead of
now
making
you're
it
missing
easier.
this.
Yeah.
So they're getting 2 rejections when they would have known if they had all 3 pieces.
One of the
And
things
again-
that somebody go ahead.
Can I just
Go ahead.
ask? Obviously, you were listening. So there was
Mhm.
there was the talk about the fence.
Yeah.
That someone got a fence. They wanted it in the same place. It was all the same. Can those things be fast tracked?
I don't know why they couldn't. And
Okay.
I think that's something that a council can discuss and give direction to staff, that administratively, if you had a fence in a location, and I know the person that they were talking about, and it makes sense. If you had a fence before the storm that went through that the town permitted before the storm, why shouldn't you be allowed to have that
And then
fence?
pay again. I mean, what the amount?
Well, I
was-
could tell you that this person didn't have an issue with paying, but it's the issue of the timing. So again, one thing is holding up something else. The fence is holding up the pool. Then the pool is holding up
Yeah.
the pavers. And so it's all those things that have to go in
Mhm.
line. But until that first domino falls, we need to be administratively doing what we can to approve things that aren't going to get us kicked out of the National Flood Insurance Program.
So
Well, and
on
I
the
think
but on the
thing is-
fence,
one last thing is that somebody talked about empowering the town staff, to avoid builders having to repeatedly go back to the LPA and that kind of thing. Again, more streamlining. Is that something that could be done so that town staff could make more decisions rather than kicking everybody to the LPA?
Well, what he was talking is about it's, and I've seen all of them, and you're talking about adjusting side setbacks. That's not something that administratively they can just say, yeah, that's okay, because you
Okay.
build a specific house, a specific size, that you builder A or you builder B can arbitrarily, because the staff says it's okay, to go to a 5.5 foot setback, or that's something that has to be done through the LPA process and the council process. So administratively, there's things that should very easily be able to be handled. And I'll certainly be bringing it up with Andy to have a conversation with staff on what we can do within what we're allowed to do and get some of these things gone through, because it takes up staff time. It takes up LPA member time. It takes up council
Mhm.
members
The whole
time.
thing with the fence just seemed like it was a waste of time. If somebody's trying to put in a fence that was identical to the fence that was there before, you just seemed like you should just be able to, okay, that's a great idea. Let's just move this guy along and move on to the next one that's probably a little more complicated.
Well, yeah, I mean, assuming that we'll just keep on this fence one because that's what we're talking about, but assuming that this person who knows exactly what they're supposed to do, knows the process, knows everything they need to do, they submit their plans of this is exactly where the fence was. It shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
I paid my fee. I did everything that I was supposed to do. Unless there's something I'm missing, I don't understand why these things can't get moved along
Right.
a little faster.
What is your general feeling or thoughts on what took place here tonight and all the folks that gathered, and what do you get out of it from what you
It sounds
heard?
to me like they're still kind of trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do. I think their message was very clear that they want to see things get built back quicker. They understand what hoops that have to be gone through, and it's always good to have the community involved in discussions.
Right.
I've said it all along.
Mhm.
Not everybody is the smartest person in the room, but when you hear people talk and you start hearing ideas, it clicks other ideas. Like I can help with the notice of commencements.
Right.
Someone else can say, I know everything there is to know about roofing. I can help you get through this process or give you all the stuff that you need. And it's just a matter of sharing documentation. Here's the PDF file that you need. I found it. I still find it difficult to find things on the website. So if someone can get something that makes someone's life easier, and it's just a matter of sharing that PDF, whether it's through the town's website, we'll continue to work on getting our end cleaned up. But if you did the legwork to find something that maybe is a one-off that could help somebody else, sharing information always helps.
Before the meeting tonight, I'm sure you heard feedback and input of what the whole group was going to be about. So what would you like to see come of this? I guess there's going to be a liaison between this group and the town
Well, that's what
council.
they're going to ask for.
Well,
it
I think
sounded like.
I'm a little concerned on some part of it, because when you get that many LPA members and that many council members in the same area, when does it become a sunshine issue? And I don't know what it is. I'm not a lawyer, but if you have the same, that's why I'm not on the Resilient League committee, because I wanted to be able to talk with then Mayor Smith at the time about how we can work together and ideas that maybe she thought of that I didn't think of that would help us specifically, that wouldn't necessarily be a broader thing. So if we were both on that committee, we couldn't communicate with one another.
Right.
We couldn't
Right.
couldn't talk because of the sunshine. So I don't know if I would encourage them to go talk to the town attorney and find out what they can and can't do. I'm not against having a town liaison or a council member liaison. It's just a matter of making sure the process is going through the right way so that it's protecting them, it's protecting the town, and it's protecting the end goal.
One of the things Scott mentioned many times, Scott Safford, who's on the LPA and used to own the Sea Gypsy, he still owns it, but it's not there anymore. With these pink zones, is this something that the town can just say, okay, this is a pink zone, we're going to go in and we're going to fix it
track.
faster?
Mhm.
Potentially. I mean, there's a thing called spot zoning. I don't know how that comes into play I'm still learning about these pink zones. I just heard about them the other day or maybe a week ago.
Yeah.
It's basically urban planning is essentially what it is. It gives you little areas, but
It sounds like eminent domain to me.
Well, no, you have to be very careful that, let's say you're in the downtown zoning district,
Right.
and one section of that is now a pink zone, and this person in the pink zone gets to not amass property, but gets to allow to do this, and is that considered spot zoning? I don't know. I don't know.
Which is not legal,
It's
right?
not legal.
Yeah,
No, you can't.
right.
You can't tell one person in the same district, yeah, you can do this, but then you can't. And that's my conversations with some of the members that were up there speaking tonight. Is as a government body, as the LPA, and as the town council, you have to be careful of that. You have to make sure that you're conversing with your staff. We have to get some more experts in here to be able to help us through this. It's not something that just our town staff can handle. We've got experts in here helping with the disaster recovery, if you will. We've got Eddie Nigg. My personal opinion is I don't think he's the guy for the job. I think we need to find somebody else, but someone that understands the history.
He was the one coming up with the different nodes, or at least part of the planning for the different nodes around the island.
Well, and I think some of that presentation has really gotten us to where we're at. Now it's a lot of hyperbole out there that there's the sky's the limit. We can build what we want. Well, we still have the land development code and the comp plan, which are our laws that we were elected to protect and to enforce, if you will.
Right.
So unless there's, and I think Jane Plummer said it, and I agree with her wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Unless there is a willingness to adjust the comp plan to allow these things, we're just talking about nothing unless you go to the CPD process, which then adds other costs that because you went this path to try
Right. Construction, commercial plan
it's
development.
very difficult.
Can
to
you
give-
explain what that is? It comes up a lot. The abbreviation comes up a lot. It's something Margaritaville did. It's something other developers on Fort Myers did. They create this commercial development
commercial
You
plan
gonna ask
development?
him?
plan
Yeah.
development.
Are you gonna
And what does that
define it?
mean? What does that make that?
It essentially it's trying to say it so that it's the easiest. It's essentially a mechanism for a developer to ask for something that's outside the comp plan or land development code.
Okay.
So say in the comp plan, you by right you're allowed a FAR ratio of 1, but you can have a max of 1.8, which is the downtown district. And I don't know if the by right part is right, but 1.8, for instance, is the downtown district max FAR. Without creating a CPD, you
Can't go outside
you
that.
can't go outside that. And even to get to the max, you have to do a lot to be able to achieve that. So that's what the comp plan is there to do, is to protect those thresholds. Now there's ways to, just like we talked about on the cottages on the north end of the island, through the LPA process and through the council process, they were able to build back what they wouldn't have been able to build before the storm. We heard a lot of people saying, well, I can't live in 800 square feet. Well, you still have a mechanism. And I think we have one on that we're going to be hearing tomorrow that is needing something a little bit more to make ADA compliant for what they need to do. That's asking for, so there's always another process you can go through, but it's for me, you got to be very careful in what you do by right.
Just to be accurate, because Tom is watching, did Margaritaville didn't get a CPD, or did they? Do you know? He said it's not accurate, so I'm guessing it's
What's
something
not
I
accurate?
said.
You would
He
have
didn't
to-
say specifically, but
you would have
I was under the impression they did, but I could be wrong if they did.
I'm pretty sure they got a CPD, but
Okay, he wasn't
I
specific.
don't know what I'm not accurate
Oh, a
about. But
CPD does not allow one to exceed the comp plan or the land development code. That's what he says. But
okay,
I mean,
well, he would know better than I would.
so I think it's important for people to read the land development code and the comp plan so they understand the rules. A lot of the times people say, well, we don't know what the rules are. We don't know the rules. They lay out the rules, don't they? Those two documents lay out the rules
Well,
on the
and
island.
there was a lot of talk tonight about needing flexibility within that, and how much flexibility is there now?
There should be no flexibility.
Right.
You have to follow those rules, right? The rules are the rules, unless you come in and ask for variances and ask for, like this 8-story condo.
There's
At the
always-
Beach Baptist is never going to happen.
Well,
Like it's totally like
I
nobody on
don't-
that council is going to approve that.
Under the current comp plan and land development code, I don't know how it could.
Yeah, and how much would you really need to change it in order for something that monstrous? I mean, there may be a lot of changes that need to be made.
Well, what's acceptable? What's that threshold that people are okay with? I think everybody's already said they understand that there's going to have to be different heights potentially. There's going to have to maybe get a little bit more density. But what I think a lot of people aren't talking about is the infrastructure. We talk about things like Moss Marine, and we talk about other things that are potentially coming in to build, or even just look at small little cottages that people had before on a lot. Let's say their lot, they don't have an issue with side setbacks, but they had a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath cottage that they had as their
Mhm.
home, or they had their for Airbnb or VRBO or whatever they had. Well, if that house was completely destroyed, they're not going to build back that small little cottage. Most people are going to build back what they can. So now you're going from 1 toilet to 5 or 6 toilets, and then your neighbor's going to do the same thing, and then your neighbor, and then you
Yeah.
have the developments. We're Barrier Island. You only have a tube so big that
Yeah.
comes onto the island.
So where the Sea Gypsy was,
gonna need a bigger tube, Dave.
Well, I
You're
think
gonna
we
need a
really need
bigger
to start
tube.
having the conversations about these infrastructure, because everybody likes to look at the pretty shiny things, but it's the things that you don't see that you really have to pay attention to. How is that going to affect anybody that's been on this island? Knows at about 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon during season, your internet goes down to about nothing. It's because everybody's using it. Everybody's
Yeah.
doing their Snapchats and their Instagrams, so that's part of the infrastructure
well,
that
and
comes onto the
traffic,
island.
and yeah.
Well,
I've
there's
never done a
traffic,
Snapchat.
There's
What is
water
Snapchat?
pressure. I mean, water pressure. Anybody that lives on the island notices a difference in water pressure depending when you take showers in the day. You start adding all this stuff that wasn't there before. At some point, there's got to be density is just not a thing you can just give away.
Yeah.
It has to be thought through.
well, what do you think the chances are that the Moss Marina project gets passed with the way it is?
I don't know. They haven't submitted anything.
Oh,
so
it still
it's-
hasn't been submitted.
Not that
Okay.
not that I know.
So has any major project on the island been submitted yet that is in the books?
I don't know anything major. Pink Shell, I think, has got a something in with the town. I haven't heard where that's at, but I
Okay.
think that's the only one that I know of.
All right. And
A lot are close, and Moss Marine is close.
yeah,
you
to
know.
putting their paperwork in.
Right.
And the process for that would be it gets submitted to staff first, right? And then staff will give the LPA a recommendation, and then the LPA looks at it, and then the town. Is that how the whole process goes
Yeah,
down?
they submit whatever it is they want for their submittal. Then the staff looks at it, reviews it, makes recommendations based on the land development code and the comp plan. They give their recommendations to deny or approve. Then it goes to the LPA where they discuss it. They make their recommendations based on the staff recommendations and their research. Then it comes to the council for 2 hearings to be able to go through and discuss it again.
I see. Do you know anything official on the Red Coconut property yet?
Nothing official, no.
Any rumors you can share? Is it
He's
the-
not going to share those.
The people that are looking at it are trying to go through their what they can do, what they can't do. There's been some
I see.
interaction with the staff is what this means, what that means, how does that work. So they're trying to do the right thing to make sure that when they're bringing it forward. But I'll tell you that the communication that I have had with them, they've been very much about, and everyone that I've met with so far has been, for the most part, what does the island need? What can we do to be part of the community? What is it that not, this is what I want, take it or leave it. You know, it's
Yeah.
they've all been very, at least open to listening to what,
I'm sorry, you said they, but I didn't hear who they is.
everyone,
No, I
all.
mean at the Red Coconut. What about you know anything about the Outrigger property?
I know a little bit. I
Can
know
you share
I've
that
met
with
with
the-
the people? I believe in the term I just learned not that long ago. It's become a hard deal. I don't think it's closed yet, but the money is hard and development and real estate. Evidently, that means that the deal is going to happen.
Is that the Grand Bay View folks that built the Bayside, or is that the other hotel? I get them confused. So what's the other hotel on that side of the island? That the Wyndham.
Oh, the Gulf View 12.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? No, it's not them. No.
Okay, so we might hear about an Outrigger sale soon, is what it sounds like.
You might. Yeah.
Do you
I've met with them a couple times.
have they given you an idea what they might build?
No. Again, they didn't come forward with any plan. They have like ideas. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what we're doing over here. What does the island need? What do you think what is it? And I always try to tell everyone the same thing. This island is very much about being open for the people that live here and the people that visit here. So anyone that starts out a conversation with being very inclusive, I kind of caution them that this is not an island of inclusive. I mean, we're not about it's private for just your people that are staying there. People talk about the Outrigger. They love the Outrigger. It's one of the most popular places to go watch the sunset. And whether you're a visitor or whether you're a resident, you like to go watch it there. So to close that off and not allow the residents that have been here for a long time be able to access that would be a detriment to you, I think, and it would be an uphill battle. So they listened, they took notes, and we'll see what they come back with when they do come back. But I've had a couple meetings with them. Commissioner Sandelli was with me on one of them, and they were very receptive. They're a reputable company. When you find out who it is, they're very quality.
When people ask you, what does the island need, or what could they build there? Why don't you, the answer to everybody should be, well, here's the land development code and here's the comp plan. You need to follow it.
I've been trying to say to it when I hear people say that, well, we need a plan. Well, technically we have a plan. Technically we have the roadmap is there. Now, do we want to Jane's point? What's the willingness to change that roadmap?
Mm-hmm.
And until we have that discussion, everything else really doesn't matter because our roadmap is there. But can you work within that roadmap, or do you need to get something outside that? And what's the easiest way? Because if you make comp plan adjustments, there's nothing about sprinting in that. That's a marathon. That has to go through the state's process. So it's not something that you're going to snap your fingers and by season you're going to have something built. It takes a process. But I think their point today was we need to get that process moving as fast as we can, which is understandable.
So somebody brought up Times Square and about, that there's no advice on how to rebuild Times Square and about getting consultants. Where does that process? Because there are so many different, there's the town, there's the county, there's so many different and the business owners. Yeah. How
if somebody
what
wanted
is the way forward?
if somebody wanted to build their business back, they could, right? It needs to be 18 feet above
19
feet above
whatever the
base flood
flood,
elevation, and they can make a proposal for a building, but
And
then
you
they'd
can-
be standing there alone.
Well, and that's kind of where we're coming into. I think a couple of people in the meeting tonight said, well, the dollars and cents don't make sense. It doesn't financially make sense. I completely understand that, and I sympathize for people, but that's what's there now. And until we have the discussions about, do you want to change it? And if you want to change it, how much do you want to go? What do you want the future of Fort Myers Beach to look like? That's what everybody's asking. But to say that there's not a plan, technically there's a plan. It's there. It was written back when the town incorporated. People may not like it, and it may not, parts of it don't fit with where we are today.
But there's nothing you could change. The town could change with Times Square. It's in a high velocity zone, and you have to build up. There's no changing that. Right?
Well, again, you go back to the national. I mean, if you want to be in the national flood insurance, you gotta build to what.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways you can build. You just it's very expensive. I mean, look at Wahoo Willie's. They built at ground level.
Yeah.
They did it because they dry flood proofed it. So they built on the ground, but it was a more expensive way for them to do it.
But they couldn't do that in Times Square because they're in a different zone, right? You have to build 19 feet in the air.
I don't want to say that yes or no on that. I don't know if there's a possible way that they could or they couldn't. Maybe they could do bathrooms down there or something.
Right.
I mean, but doesn't mean that you can't use that lower level for tables to be down there for your guests to sit and eat. I mean, it's not that it's an unusable space that you can't walk in there, you can't do anything there. And I think that's part of how do you make that area, a lot of people like to use the word activate. How do you activate that area where you still get that walkability like we had before the storm? People loved being able to walk around. And, now that your structures are going to be elevated, you've got an actual shaded area. Not everybody likes to be out in the hot blazing sun. So
I love shade.
There's opportunity. It's just thinking outside the box on what you can make work. And then you can still build, by right, you can build to a certain height, but apparently that height isn't enough.
Scott from the Sea Gypsy, I started to say before, he's kind of the organizer, one of the organizers of this group that met tonight. And what can they build? What can they build back? Can they build the Sea Gypsy back, or what's the problem in that spot?
My guess is the size a lot. I don't know the dimensions on it, but they're on a corner, so they're dealing with side setbacks up front. They're dealing with the whole
height and setback requirements.
Height and setback, and again, I don't know what in his case. I don't know what would have to be changed to make it one, financially viable, and two, work with it. It sounds like parking. I mean, that's not a huge lot there, so
right.
I think that's probably some of the discussions that people are. What can you do? But again, he goes back to, I know they talk about the pink zones, and I don't know enough about those yet to speak intelligently enough about it, or CPDs for that matter. It sounds like.
Well, there's been some weigh in on that, so
yeah, good. Well, I'm glad the people that are smarter than me weigh in on the CPD process. I just know that it's anyway. Moving on, but I don't know what the dimensions are, so I don't know what they could build there by right, if they could build anything by right. I don't know.
What do you think will be the next is the first project that we see built, the new project, not something that, like Diamond Head or the Pink Shell or Wahoo Willie's were able to reopen, but you think we're going to see something being built soon, some new construction
from the ground up?
Yeah.
Well, again, soon.
Whatever you decide soon is.
I would be willing to bet that someone's going to come forth with a land development order pretty soon if they haven't already. Again, I haven't talked to staff today. That they were not there today, so I don't know. I have a feeling there'll be something fairly soon, but then you still got the design process that you have to go through and get there. So soon as a relative number.
I mean, do you feel like things are moving as fast as they could, or I mean, there's obviously there's frustration, but nobody's ever gone through this before around here. I mean, it was catastrophic. It was like a bomb hit the place, and there's so many different things going on. There's still debris being removed. There's still, I mean, somebody said something about the debris today, and even I was like, there's debris being removed everywhere.
Every day.
Even those giant chunks of concrete are being removed by probably the county, I'm guessing, off of Estero Boulevard.
I've seen them working on Estero Boulevard. They've removed 2 major piles I've seen already. So it's moving forward. I would be willing to ask anyone out there that was on this island during the storm or immediately thereafter and saw what they saw, if they thought 9 months after the storm we'd be as far as we were. And I would challenge any one of them to tell me, oh, I thought we'd be way further, because I think personally they'd be lying. No one, when I saw what I saw the minutes after that storm passed and went out there, I never thought we were coming back, period.
Yeah.
Let alone Publix being open again 8 months after the storm. Gas stations are starting to come back. We just saw the news about CVS is planning on trying to be open by the end of the all in less than a year. And then you look at stories of other places that it's 5 years since the storm and they still don't have a grocery store. So when you look at things and put them in perspective, the whole idea of like the FDM and processes that you go through is to try to get better so that if there is another storm or there is another event, that you help that rebuild move quicker. So we're learning from what other people went through to try to implement better ways to make it so that if God forbid somebody has to go through this again, they can say this is what Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel and Lee County did to get back open as fast as possible and get the residents back in their house. And how can we improve on that?
Well, I think to that point, there was someone who said there's got to be a book out there. There's got to be a book out there that people have learned from and added to from storm to storm to storm, some kind of manual. I mean, I don't know that there's actually a book, but I think that's what you're saying is that you're pulling information from Mexico Beach and the other.
Yeah, there's not necessarily a book, but FDEM, their job is to monitor things, how it works. This is the first storm that they ever did the private property and a commercial property pickup. This is the first storm. They saw how, I guarantee you, they see ways to improve that process should they have to go through it again. But you saw how fast when they came in and there was one voice, one person taking over the contract and saying, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to get it done. It sped things up. Again, is it ever fast enough? No, we all want it to be back to the September 27th before the storm. But I think almost 9 months after the storm, are we as far as I'd like to see? No. I mean, look out the window.
Yeah.
There's still two-story piles of rubble that are being cleaned up.
Part of the problem too, and it has nothing to do with the town, is all these condo buildings. The people aren't here because they're dealing with insurance and they're still dealing with the roofs and they're still dealing with the elevators. I mean, this is an elevator.
Systems, everything.
This is going to be like an elevator company bonanza for these people that make elevators, and it's not like you can just manufacture an elevator up on the the end of the street there. These buildings are waiting for things, and when you talk to some of the condo presidents, they're saying a year or maybe even longer, 18 months, and we need all those people back in those buildings.
Sure. If they're not back here, when you're dealing with, we're starting to get more information on, obviously the condos are people can't live in them because if you don't have sprinklers, you don't have exit signs, you don't have, and it goes through not just the town's review, it goes through the fire review. And some of these buildings are old, and I've heard some people they have to update their sprinkler system drawing. Well, that's $150,000 that condo doesn't have. So and the fire district has to follow the same rules that we have to follow. They have safety concerns that they have to follow, and you can't deviate from some of these things. As much as people don't want to hear that, it's the truth.
And one of the things about hearing people want to fast track things or things like that is like you still live on in an area where another storm could come like every single year. And so, I mean, you can't skirt the rules, or you can't, build on the ground level. If FEMA now says you've been getting away with it for how many years where the places stood.
Well, we see that all you have to do is look at what survived. The building codes work.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, the building that we're sitting in, the houses that are on it. I mean, they survived because they were built to current building codes. So they do work. And that's the point of them, is so that if you do have something catastrophic like this, that not everybody is displaced. It's unfortunate that we lost most of our cottages, and a lot of them survived miraculously, but a lot of them didn't, and we're never going to get those back. And it's sad, but I'm talking to a lot of people. Just because you can build a 2 or 3 story monstrosity house doesn't mean that you have to. Some people are choosing to build 1,200 square foot one level home that's elevated because that's the quaintness that they like, and encourage that. I think that's great. You don't necessarily have to build 3 stories just because you can, but
There was a comment about getting more public education on codes and permitting. Is that something that, the town should be doing? Or, we saw some people tonight kind of wanting to share information, but what else could the town do to kind of advance that education process for residents and contractors?
I think as you heard tonight, we're all in this together. Everybody thinks about something. We can't think of everything ourselves. Information, I hate when we say it, but it's like, the information's on the website. Well, it's not always easy to find on the website.
True. Are there tutorials on the website? Are there YouTube tutorials about how to go through some of this stuff?
There should be YouTube tutorials. Everybody follows that. Well, that would be great.
Is that
most good contractors know the process. They may not agree with the process, but they know the process. They know what they have to submit. I've heard from several people that have said we haven't had any issues with permitting. We submitted our permit in 10 days, we got it back, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But they had a contractor that submitted everything, or they submitted everything that they needed. They may have taken a week or two to do the research to figure it out. But I think your point you're trying to make is, how do we make that easier? Whether it's town hall meeting or something that we could say, this is the process you have to follow for this, or this is the process you have to follow for that. But how do you get it out to all the people? Not everybody follows your page, Ed, despite what you may think.
How dare you?
Not everybody follows. Not
we don't
everybody.
need that on our page, though. That will leave.
No,
that
but
to
I mean,
you.
not every. You can put the information out through your page. You can put it out through the paper. You can put it out through the town's website. You can't put everything in someone's water bill. So
Right.
you try to get it out there through social media sites. Where do you send letters to? Even if you could send a change to a code to everybody, where do you send it? What address do you send it to? The address that they have here, or the address they have so nothing's impossible, and you have to keep working to make the process better. But it's never going to be perfect, unfortunately.
Albert says, and he's always great to comment, design professionals know the codes and where to find them. A tutorial on this would be so complicated as no benefit. Knowing
There
the
you go.
building codes takes a long time, and people who are experienced know them. And by the way, Ron says Marina Village at Snug Harbor is opening September the 2nd, so that's good. But Lori says her association is still 18 to 24 months away, so
I'd
it's
be
all
curious
over the board.
I'd be curious as to why. I'm guessing it's parts and contractors and
Yeah.
structural engineers. It's kind of all over the board.
Well, this is
Well, and I wonder if
ahead.
that's like the owner builder folks that are, having difficulty getting through the process more than,
There's so much to learn since the storm, like the
I just-
50-50 and the permitting and the contractors that are leaving you hanging and the insurance. It's like, I think I was mentioning this the other night on the Friday show that we had last week. It just turned your life upside down. You were never expecting to deal with all this,
Well-
and now it runs your life.
Well, when I said it, I've said it a couple times. It's thrusted people into an arena that they never thought they'd have to be in, myself included. I'm not a developer. I don't know all the ins and outs of every zoning district and CPDs, and obviously, I'm still learning. So I'm trying to get the information out as best I can as I learn it.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that if I don't know something, I will go figure it out, and I'll make sure I get it to you right the next time.
And there's
I would imagine for you, it's a kind of a double-edged sword, so to speak, because it's not only personally, but professionally. I'm guessing when you didn't plan for this occurrence to happen. No one plans for this. This is unusual circumstances to be the mayor of a town that's gone through this kind of.
Well, and everybody's challenge is different, whether you're residential or you're commercial. So everybody's need, everybody's lot size, everybody's financial, they're all different. And that's the importance of that comp plan and land development code is that's your guidance. That's your roadmap. And if there's not a will to change that, I believe you've heard all the council members and all the LP members. And even at the last LP, I think Chair Saracita asked, has anybody changed their position on the increase of the FAR on the comp plan? And they all said no.
right.
So there's one part of it,
Right.
right?
There's your rules right there. Your rules are right there, and everybody agrees the rules should be in place.
The one thing that we have that most people don't is we've got this beautiful beach, right?
Yep.
People are going to come here.
Right.
It may not work for me to be able to live here forever. It may not work for you to ever be able to live here. Or
Yeah, it
right.
definitely will not.
Well, no, I mean,
that's
just
a
saying,
damn. That's a
I
fact
mean,
right
it's
there,
It's
Jack.
unfortunate that
It is what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
well, I hate that is what it is part.
but I
because
mean,
you
there's
took- we-
only so much beach. He says that all
you
the
can
time.
never make more
You-
beach.
Yeah.
It is gonna just be what it is.
ocean. Yeah, I mean, I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim
What'd
calls
you
it
get?
I
ocean,
just-
but there's not a lot. Or not building any more Gulf front property.
One last thing. I mean, for me, there was a guy got up there. I think his name was Mike that talked about the canals not being navigable,
Mhm.
and that the town had applied for federal help with cleaning up the canals for dredging. Anything to add to that? Look, that he said there's 3 foot less water due to the sand being deposited
Right.
during the storm, and then he was going on about how it's going to get to be a real problem. So I don't
Sure.
know anything about that. Any words to add to that?
Well, we did put in I saw over the weekend one of the requests we put in through the Dems or Demis, however they say it, was one of them was for dredging, help with dredging money. So the problem we had with dredging is FEMA doesn't reimburse you anything if you don't have really good records, and the town had no records of dredging the canals. There was nothing to apply for funding through FEMA on to do that. So we're trying to find other ways to. We know dredging is an issue. We've talked about it in one of the previous council meetings. Well, how do we? They'd started. I think I can't remember his name. He lived on Santos. I think he still lives there, but his house is gone. He and I spoke a couple of times about. I think back in 2004, 2005, something like that, they were trying to put forth a project where it was the town managed thing, but everybody on the canal paid in to keep but it never got off the ground. It never went in. It might even been earlier than that. I could be wrong on the.
If I remember right, the town is looking into some kind of way, because Laguna Shores was going to get their area dredged and the town was going to split it 50-50. So I remember the town council or the staff saying, can we do this everywhere to maybe there's a way to everybody.
That's not a cheap project.
Sure.
You're talking, I think the numbers are in the $20 million range or
that's
higher
crazy,
potentially
because there's just enough money floating around everywhere.
You talked about taxes. You can't do things like that if you don't have the money to pay for them, whether you're a homeowner or a town. So we have to work through it. Hopefully we can get some help through the appropriations to be able to start the process.
So that federal money is not accessible because there weren't records from before. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding. Yeah. We don't have any definable records that we've been maintaining the canal. So if you haven't been maintaining something, they're not going to come in and give you money for something. You're mowing your grass. They're not going to buy you a new lawnmower.
I know, but if there are 3
let it
feet
go.
or whatever
Let it go.
of sand
Let the
in
dredging
there,
go.
that didn't.
Let it go. So Dan,
definitely
it's 7 o'clock.
Well, it doesn't mean that there's not other ways through grants and other things that. Trust me, I know Tidal Basin is looking. That's a very high priority for the staff to figure out funding. It's not going to be a cheap task, and I don't think there's anybody out there. I could be wrong. I'm not a specialist in it that's going to give us 100% of the money to do it. So,
well, it's 7 o'clock, Dan. We know you got people to see over here, and but before you left, I know you and Ray Sandelli have been working closely. He mentioned your name a couple of times at the bridge, that you guys talk on a regular basis. He announced he wasn't running again for county board. So, anything you want to say about Ray?
Well, I don't know how much I can say about Ray that I haven't already said. He served our country. He served Lee County. He continues to serve Lee County. He's been a good sounding board. He's a very detail-oriented person, takes a lot of notes. He's very good about follow-up. You may not agree with his answer, but he will follow up with you an answer and get you an answer. Can't change everything overnight, as we all know, but just getting the Estero Boulevard cleaned up, he went and talked to his team, and they got the process going. So he's a true community servant. He has served us well. He will continue to serve us well. I wish him nothing but the best, and whatever he decides to do afterwards. I know he and his wife are looking forward to traveling and seeing their kids, and he's a fun follow on Facebook to see some of the adventures he does, and I wish him nothing but the best. I'd say we've become friends over the last couple of years and talking and working through things, and so I look forward to our continued friendship and wish him the best for the next 18 months.
All right, Dan, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yep,
and thanks to Diamond Head for allowing us to hang out at their restaurant here with the beach in the background. And before we go, I did want to mention that the party we're having, a follower appreciation party that we're having at the Pink Shell next Sunday, all of the day passes have been sold. So if you waited, you're on a waiting list if you want to still give it a shot. But we have $500 in gift certificates, 5 $100 gift certificates to Publix that were given away. Somebody just gave back a Key West Express a round trip ticket that they won at the pub crawl, so we're going to give that away Sunday. We're also giving away $500 gift certificate to the Goods, and $1,000 worth of beer and wine to start off the party is on us. So we'll see you at the Pink Shell Pool on Sunday if you got yourself a $20 day pass. Liberty Roofing and Construction is a sponsor of tonight's show, and they are your trusted roofing company with a certified to provide the industry-leading manufacturer's total system 50-year warranty. I always jump ahead on that because I love saying that, 50-year warranty. And Liberty Roofing says your roof will be done within 30 days of when your permit is issued. Thank you to Liberty Roofing. You can call Patrick McKenna today at 401-439-9585. 401-439-9585. You might have seen him earlier tonight at the meeting that they had here at the Diamond Head, but Alex King is also a sponsor. Alex King and Current Coastal Realty. You see him everywhere in Fort Myers Beach. You know them and you love them. They know everything about the 50% rule, to elevate or not elevate. They have an office right here on Fort Myers Beach. Alex King lives and he owns property right here on the island. The King family has been island residents since 1958. That's a trivia question next time we have prizes. How long has the King family? I'm just looking out the window at how awesome this beach looks outside Diamond Head. It really is awesome looking. The water is nice. The sand is nice. The berm looks great. And people are walking around having a great time. Thank you to the King Foundation. And you can call Alex anytime on his cell phone. Do it right now. 849-3663. Call him on a cell phone and say, Ed told me to call you. 849-3663. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks for watching Mondays with the Mayor, episode number 27. And we'll be back Saturday morning live from Wahoo Willie's. And you never know, we might have another Friday show if we find some folks that are dealing with a rebuild. That show last weekend was great. Great information from the residents on the beach. And Saturday at 11 and Sunday 1 to 4 at the Pink Shell. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.